Hello again, I'm Fabian Shepard, and welcome back to another episode of Alegria in Kansas City. I want to introduce you to our guest today, a fantastic individual living right here in Kansas City who has far more talent in her little bitty finger than I do in my entire body. This is an artist who does talented paintings here, and her name is Rosario. Rosario, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Fabian. Appreciate being here.
Fantastic. Now, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it for a while now. I started a lot using charcoal when I was a teenager, kind of put it aside, and it wasn't really till later in life where I really started painting. And painting has been my saving grace as far as, with everything that has happened with my life. And so I don't know what you want me to kind of go through.
Well, I will talk to you about that a little bit, because I know that as a writer myself, there have been times when things have gone just perfectly well, and there have been times when I kind of get stuck. Has that happened with you?
Oh yes, I get stuck as far as and what I've learned is I just kind of put it aside, and then when inspiration comes up or strikes at any time, that's when I paint. And do you remember that morning, the way we met? And I was going to the office, and he was coming into the office, and I just looked up, and he goes, "Why the long face?" Do you remember that?
I don't. I don't remember my words.
I was in the middle of painting, because sometimes I paint in the morning when inspiration, strikes, or at night, or just whenever the inspiration strikes. And I did not realize I was doing that, and I was going, oh, I had to put my painting down because it was time to go to work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How about that? And that's that whole thing when you walk in someone else's shoes. Sometimes you think someone might be angry or upset, and they're just in thought. And that's great, though. I'm glad that there wasn't anything wrong.
Yeah, that's what that was.
Well, fantastic. Now, I remember talking to you, and you explained to me that you were in Arizona, and at some point you were inspired. You talked about inspiration. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let me talk about that. And I'm going to bring up the actual painting, my first painting that really inspired, and it was from my trip from Sedona, Arizona. And this particular canvas was on my easel for like months. I could not start. And because a lot of that is like when we start, sometimes we keep ourselves from starting a project because you don't want to fail, or I don't want to mess it up. So this canvas remained blank for like months. And so when I went to Sedona's beautiful. If you ever get a chance to go there, go there. It's beautiful, and it's also has a lot of healing energies. And so when I came back, I was able to just really pick up the paint and the brush, and I had a picture. This is Bell Rock. I had a picture of Bell Rock, and I started painting. And you'll see here I added the actual mesa, which is Bell Rock, and then added some of the juniper type trees in the sun. And in the entrance of Bell Rock, there was 2 hawks, red-tailed hawks, and so I wanted to add that. And one of the other things I wanted to add, because it didn't feel complete, that's one of the things too, is as an artist, sometimes you can go back to a painting years down the road and add to it, when you're inspired to add, or when you realize that's not quite done yet. Let me add this. This is what I'm going to add to it. And so they have beautiful driftwood there, and I decided to go ahead and add this driftwood, which to me almost makes it look like a mirror.
It does.
Of the picture.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, and I can see how you did with the hawks there. That's beautiful. So tell me this. Have you been painting all your life, and then you've suddenly come into your own, or how?
No, I'm actually a self-taught artist, and kind of almost like what you just said, is coming into my own. And I'm still like going through trying to, see what is my style, because I paint emotions, I paint whatever is going on in my life, and so a lot of my paintings vary quite a bit. So I wanted to also bring up that, and as far as something that happened to me, my youngest son, he had passed at 17.
Oh.
And so I went through it was grief. It was very hard. Part of the healing, I went through just phases of just really looking at the spiritual side,
Yes.
looking at all the relationships in my life, looking at what do I want to do. It just kind of stops your life. And so part of the healing, I went back to playing the piano. I went to writing poetry. I have a lot of poetry out there, and I may look some things up too to find places to read poetry. And then my last one was actually painting. I started picking up the painting, and that's why I said, my saving grace, because it has helped me as part of the healing process as far as with the grief. So painting has been like that for me, and each one has a story. When I paint, I don't paint to sell. That's not me. I paint because whatever it is that's coming through, as far as emotions or a story, that's what I paint. And then what I hope is the painting and the actual individual who might fall in love with it or connect with it, that they call each other, that this is meant for you, or he or she is meant for this painting.
Hence the painting selling themselves.
Yes, the painting selling themselves.
Well, that's fantastic. What's the one that you had behind this
this one?
inspirational piece?
Oh, when growing up, my mom, she was very, Catholic, and some of the things, it was always Mother Mary, and the other part too is I love Lady Guadalupe.
Okay.
And Mother Mary and Kuan Yin. I love all the women, the strong, compassionate women that's out there as far as deities. And so when I painted this, it started out as rose petals. And then I kept seeing this vision of this woman in the middle of the roses, and I almost want to call her Rosary, Mother of Rosary. Okay. So she's in the middle here, and there's all these rose petals coming down, and I just wanted to put some gold in here and some halo around her head. And this is, right now I have her hanging by where I have an altar in my house, and so she's hanging there. So when I light my candles, she's, she's there. But roses it's just a beautiful roses, the smell, the purity of it. And so she came through.
And her eyes are closed. Is there any significance to that?
No, it's just almost like dream state, in thought, in prayer.
Okay. So I want to ask you, when you talk about the inspiration that you got in painting that one, where do you suppose the inspiration came from this one, for this one?
There's no inspiration. Sometimes I'll get a vision, and that's what comes through. When I paint, I don't have a set thing in mind, unless it's something that someone's wanting me to paint. But so when I paint, it's just whatever comes through, it's inspired. Like, I did not realize, like, when I started painting, I never know what it's going to look like when it's done.
Oh.
So this started out, if you saw the beginning of the phases, it was all just rose petals.
Okay.
And then I kept seeing a vision of this woman in the middle of it. And it's like, okay. And I just listened to that intuition, and I paint her.
Okay.
And that's what comes up, and it just goes in. When I paint, it's layers, and it's in fate. It might take weeks. It might take, sometimes depending on how driven I am on a particular painting, it could take a week, and sometimes a couple weeks, sometimes longer.
Okay. All right. Now, do you have other people in your family who are artists?
No,
you mentioned
right
playing
now,
the piano
yeah.
and painting. That's two skills. You got me licked. I can't do either one.
Well, I have, when we grew up, my dad had a kind of a dream that the girls would take piano lessons. And so the next week after that, he went and bought a stand-up right piano, found a teacher for us, and we started playing the piano, started taking piano lessons. And I've been playing the piano here and there, but then, raising a family, I kind of put it aside between the job and the family, and it wasn't until later I started picking it up again.
Well, now I understand that your family is kind of like my family and some of the other guests that we've had on this program. You have a lineage that is based in Filipino, Hispanic, Native American, and Black or African American.
Yeah. And no Hispanic.
No
and
Hispanic.
Some
okay.
English.
Okay, and some English. Well, what was that like growing up in that household?
It was very different, and I relate more with the Filipino, and as far as you know, the other ones, it just varies. And I remember growing up, people would always ask, "What are you?" And it came to a point where, for me, it's like I'm Rosario.
Very good.
You know, I'm Rosario. At the end of the day, when I go to sleep, I'm Rosario. I'm not yellow. I'm not red. I'm not. You know, I'm
Right.
Rosario.
People want to put you in a box or a silo, so to speak.
Right.
Happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, so there is a painting over here with me, and I'm going to hold this up so that we can take a close look at it. What is this?
That one, my son, my older son, he wanted me to do a portrait, and I'm portrait of myself or pictures of myself. I'm just like and so I was thinking, what best way to do a portrait of me that I would leave for my son, and because like right now I love watching sunrises, especially when the weather's warm. I go out in my patio, I have my black coffee. I sit there on the patio and I just watch the sunrise and you listen to the birds. And when it's cooler weather, I have a blanket around me. And so I just felt like when I painted this one, that was a portrait of me.
Oh, wow. I like that. I like that. And black coffee in the morning. So
Yes,
you're a
black coffee
tougher
in the
man than
morning.
me. So tell me a little bit about your experience outside of painting, because you described a tragedy in your life. Outside of the painting, personally, I know there are other things that can be therapeutic. Is the piano playing?
Yeah, the
is that
piano
also?
playing was therapeutic. I had just created some songs. One was for my son, and then the other one, when my mom passed, it was a song for my mom, The Journey. And so that is my creative outlet when I'm really in deep grief. Back then, you know, I would play the piano, I'd play around with a song, and I would put it together.
So it truly has been therapeutic for you.
It's been all therapeutic. And then as well as the poetry, I was writing poetry and writing just whatever was coming out, and that was also therapeutic for me.
And so you said your other family members also play piano.
piano,
Do they paint or do they have other artistic talents?
No. My one sister, they have a little company where they create T-shirts and it's what do you call it? Embroidery.
Okay.
So they're able
It's
to
a
do
form
that.
of art.
Yeah, it's a form of art. But the other ones, not really. Not that that they make aware of.
And so what do we have here, if you could explain this one in the center?
This one came about because it's a monotone painting, and it started out where it was just really these kind of a gray brown with the vanilla white, and so I just kind of throw paint out there. I just do the paintbrush and I do this, and there's no abstract. It's just abstract. And so what I do is a lot of times is I will leave it on the easel, and I will take time to just over several days, sometimes 3 days. And what happens is faces start coming through. And when the faces start coming through, that's when I take a darker shade of the paint and then kind of bring it out. And so these came through, like this woman here, and she's got a staff. And this one I kept, wondering, but it's almost like Native American because I kept seeing the eyes almost like with the crow.
Okay.
And same way here, there's a woman here, there's a man here. And this one is a older woman, it's a wise woman. And these are 3 sisters right here. And there's another one kind of looking out. But this other older woman over here with the white hair, she's looking at the 2 there as far as what came through. It was almost like the light and the dark, the good and the bad, the shadow. And so if it's like the same woman, but the shadow and the light.
Well, how about that?
And so that's what happened here. This was, again, just came through. I would never have expected this to look like this when I first started.
Well, and I've seen some of your other work, and you tend to use vibrant colors, very vibrant colors. In this case, not so much.
Yeah, this case is more monotone, and it was just because I was, as far as the faces coming through, They just come through and tell a story. So anyone that's looking at this will probably look at it and see a story behind it. And I've written like some poems, especially about her. I don't have it memorized, but there's poems about the three sisters, and so some words come up to actually go with the painting.
So it transitions. It goes beyond the painting,
yes,
and then goes to another medium of
it goes to
expression.
another medium. And I've done that with some other paintings where I have a poem that goes with the painting.
I understand. Now, speaking of vibrance, this, wow, that jumps out.
Yeah, that jumps out. And this is all the just beautiful shades of purple. And what I do is I use mud to start out. And then, again, I had no clue that she was going to come through as far as the angel. And as far as these here, I guess the way I want to explain it to me is almost like I was explaining it earlier as far as shattered glass.
Oh.
Yeah, because sometimes no matter what we're going through, sometimes that glass has to shatter for the good things to come through, for things to come through as far as truth. You heard that phrase like mirrors, where you're looking at mirrors and smoky mirrors and you're not really seeing what's going on, or you're seeing only parts of something that there's a bigger picture to it. And so with this shattered glass, it's almost like it's telling, hey, I'm here, the angel or the higher power, I'm here, you're not alone. And so with that shattered glass, it's almost like, I see you. I see you.
Yes, reflections definitely don't always tell the truth. You can have all sorts of mirrors that distort
all
things.
Mirrors like
and paintings as well, too.
Yeah, and paintings have the stories. They definitely have stories. And my interpretation of this, but another person looking at it, they may connect to it and look at it completely different, and it may have a meaning to them. And it's like, oh.
Have you had that happen? Has someone said something about some of your work that maybe you haven't thought of?
In the beginning, when I had first painted this, I was thinking it was more the angels. And more I started looking at it, it was like shattered glass, and someone confirmed. That's what I always thought. It looked like shattered glass to me, that was over. And so it's like, yeah, you're right. That is shattered glass, and it's going through and looking through the mirrors.
So tell me this, your story beyond, because I can't sit there and start something and let it sit for 6 weeks and come back and complete it. It would drive me nuts to know that it's incomplete. Is there something about your personality, about your life that allows you to do that?
Well, part of that is it was also that saving grace, because with painting, it teaches you patience. And it teaches you not to expect to have everything done at one time, and to let whatever's going to come through evolve. I
imagine cooking dinner and my kids going, Dad, I'm hungry. And I'm going, well, it hasn't evolved yet, but we got to wait for it to come through.
Hold on. Yeah, let me pull out the spices. But no, it has taught me patience and just kind of going with the flow. That's the things that, because I was always a type A person, Aries and Pisces,
very rigid.
But very Aries, kind of aggressive and, okay, let me get this done, and a routine. And some of the things with painting, it has taught me to slow down, step back, go with the flow, and that no matter what's going on, I can always go back to it. And if it's not done, it's not done. And it could be 6 months later, something else comes up and you get inspired. It's like, that's why it didn't feel complete. Because I've had a large one. I didn't want to bring it. It was a large painting, and I thought it was done. And it wasn't until recently I actually finished it. And it's like, now it feels done.
I see. Yeah, you mentioned the horoscope. I've never actually grasped the horoscope, because I always think, I wonder if you read someone's horoscope that died that day, and then you read their obituary. If you read, oh, this guy died today, you go to their horoscope. It doesn't ever say, look out for that bus. So let's take a look at this this big one back here, and let's talk
Yeah,
about that.
and that one it's similar. It's part of my trip from Sedona. So this was a
Okay.
little bit after, and again this one I did not. It just came about. I started out there. Part of me, because I love Mother Mary and Lady Guadalupe, all them. I didn't realize that when I painted her, it was like kind of a young version of Mother Mary in the back with the veil.
Okay.
But what happened is the women came out. It's sitting around a circle. It's the strength of women when they sit around a circle to be able to share and that bonding that happens. And there's an Asian woman there with a crystal, because I go like once or twice a year. I go to Arkansas and I dig crystals.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
and there's kind of me right there with the bun, with the drum, because for a while there, as part of the healing, we would have like drum circles. There was a group of us that would meet once a month, and we would play drums and listen to music and do stories or whatever. So part of that was also just the community and playing the drums. But so that lady there is me holding the drum, and then just different cultures, because I kept saying, I kept not saying, but kept seeing I need to paint like just a variety, just women in general, that as far as their strength and the number of women that form a circle, sisterhood.
Okay. Well, I have a house full of women, and I can tell you their strength
Yeah.
when they're all upset at the same time. So,
And so you got your juniper trees that grows there in Sedona, and hagstone, and you got your aloe vera. And some of those stones there are actually from Sedona. I wanted to add that element. And then I don't know if you could see it, but in the bottom there's a little crystal at the
yes,
bottom.
I hadn't seen that before.
And then as far as
And there are a myriad of colors there. I'm not sure our
there's lots
camera
of
catches that
colors.
as
Yeah,
well. But
there's lots of colors. And then part of that is also kind of an eclipse there.
oh, I see the up
yeah.
here in the corner.
Right, because I wanted to paint the sun, but no matter what I was doing, it kept staying dark in the middle. And then I realized I need to leave it because it was some form of eclipse that was going on that needed to be there. And then some of the other part I didn't finish because I didn't finish, like I could have taken that all the way through, but I didn't want to. I wanted to leave like a void in the back because of the mystery. you know.
Okay.
It's almost like a mysterious painting, of women gathering and playing the drum and sharing stories.
Well, I know there are a lot of strong women in my household, and I can tell you sometimes I see women gathered together like that, and it denotes strength, and then other times it denotes turn around and walk back out the door of your house. So, anything on the easel right now?
Well, what's on the easel right now is a blank canvas.
So you haven't begun, or
I
you've
haven't
begun, and you just
this one I haven't begun, and I have learned not to force it.
Okay.
And part of my process when I paint is I listen to beautiful music. I love piano, and there's a man, Peter Cater, that plays beautiful music, piano. They're all improvisations, piano solos, and he just plays, and I'll have that on. And sometimes I'll listen to Native American music, and the music, well, a lot of times also will help me get inspired and start.
Okay. Okay. So I want to ask you a couple of things here before we wrap this up. The first one is you talked about the passing of your child. Does much of your work have to do with that and with those emotions?
No, not anymore. Like if I would have started painting 10 years ago, I'm not sure I would be the same painter as I am now. And I have learned that everything that happens to us, even though tragic, kind of makes us who we are now. And I'm thankful, I'm grateful that I have in some ways healed. It's never completely healed when there's a death. There's always that part of your heart that's missing, that person, but I have learned to live with it and to go on with my life. And so that's how I just feel. No matter what's going on, we find purpose, and we find ways to go out there and make a difference and help, and say a kind word to somebody, or I'm kind of almost sometimes very generous. I kind of like give things to people. Here you go, here you go. And so all of that made me who I am today. And the stuff that I've gone through has made me who I am today. And would I ever want to do over? No. Because at this point, it's made me who I am, and I'm a stronger person. And as I get older, I feel that I'm coming into my own, finally, you know. And what's funny is when you had called and I read your text,
Yes.
I was at my dad's, and my niece, my beautiful niece, she's a straight shooter. She just kind of tells you, you know. And I remember going in the kitchen, and I was nervous. I was going, my friend Fabian, he wants to do an interview, you know. And she just kind of looks at me, and I go, I don't know, you know, I'm nervous, right? And it's always that fear sometimes that holds us back. We're kind of like hold ourselves back a lot. And she just looks at me. She goes, well, what are you waiting for? Are you just waiting to get older?
Oh, wow.
And you know, I'm kind of, I guess I would be categorized as a senior at this point, but I'm like, yeah, you're right. What am I waiting for? Yeah.
Well, I like you sharing the story of how you overcame the tragedy. For various people, it's different ways of dealing with it.
There's different ways.
You know, for me, it's my faith, and as you know, I have a faith in Christ, and so everything starts and ends with that. And so I always know that there's a sovereignty, and I know for you, you said it's therapeutic. Do you have any other releases that you use besides the music and the painting?
I garden. I work in my yard a lot. Fresh air always does you good, and going for walks. And really, for me, it's also just gardening.
Gotcha. And with this family background, sort of a Heinz 57, which I think basically, if you're really honest, most of America is.
Yes. Yes.
Where did you grow up? You didn't grow up here in Kansas.
In the old. I was probably about 6 years old when we came to the United States, and we grew up, like most of my childhood was in the old Northeast Kansas City area.
Northeast Kansas City, which
by
is
the Kansas City Museum.
Really a mulligan stew of all sorts of backgrounds, which is fantastic.
Right.
And I've always heard the United States described as a melting pot, but I would say it's more like a fruit salad where everything keeps its flavor, even though it's in a bowl together, if you will.
Right.
So is there one thing that you might share with folks that has been the biggest thing for you in your life, sort of that hope?
For me, it is that sometimes, no matter how dark something could be, as far as tragedy or just anything, that it will pass. It will go. It will get better. It won't stay where it's at. That you will heal, and just having faith and your higher power, whatever that is, and just trusting that things will get better. It's like with this pandemic, in some ways it's been good for people because it's really caused a lot of people to slow down and look at everything. You know, just really step back and look at what's going on with their lives. And so with that, it's just really kind of going with the flow, knowing that things always will get better. It may be not so good right now, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you very much for being here with us today. And with that, we come to the close of another episode of Alegria in Kansas City by Televida, a production of EXO Films. We will see you the next time.